Hello, my friends. Welcome once again to Kardec Radio. You are watching Spiritism, a closer look. Luiz Lima here from Orlando in Florida today. And as you know, we run this program every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. In this program, we are going to take a closer look at a concept. And the concept is all equal before the law. All of us are equal before the law. This is one of the moral principles taught by Jesus. So there's a lot to be said about it. There's a lot of details. Hopefully I'm going to be able to bring to you, something for us to, food for thought, I would say. So let's get into that. And I'm going to start by considering, or have you follow me on this thought. Let's consider a group of people. It could be a small group, it could be a country, it could be a city, a state, a province, a society. It doesn't really matter. So a group of people. And for our line of thought here, this group is given a set of rules, which is now their law. Within this context, all members are equal. All members are equal. Now, if instead the set of rules being given to the group, if the group creates their own law, their own set of rules, that's a different story, because that might produce a different outcome. Because if the law comes from outside, it could be an outcome that is different if the law comes from within. If it comes from within, the members of the group don't have the same visibility that a layer above has. Those in the group, those who are in charge of creating the laws for the group, creating the rules for the group, they might be tendentious on their judgment, and they end up creating inequalities. So important to say that the parameters to be used to create the law for that group, or the laws for that group, have to be well defined. And it seems like, what do you mean they have to be well defined? Let me bring you on, let's go a little further in this group. So in our example, the group is a group of senior citizens. Think about that, a group of seniors that are entitled to, let's just say, a discounted movie ticket, which is something, in our everyday society here. So we have a group of seniors that are entitled to a discounted movie ticket. So the first question, and we don't usually think about that. The first question is, okay, I understand what this is. Now, define senior. You see, when I tell you a group of seniors, you just assumed, yeah, those older people, yeah. Myself included, by the way, I'm sorry. So, you see, depending on what you're trying to tell about that group, the definition, a group of seniors, might be enough. Now, for a discounted movie ticket, it might be more complicated than what it thinks, really. So what is a senior? Define a senior for that group. Well, those are people over 65. Okay. Is that definition well established? Because if it's not, it's going to generate trouble. favoritisms, injustices, and other things. So just by saying, in this group, seniors mean people over 65. Is that enough? Well, let's think about this. When exactly for this group, for the discounted movie tickets, when are you declared 65? Is it at 12 a.m. on the day that you were born? Is it based on the hour of the day that you were born, let's say 9:30 in the morning? And I'm going to go with a third thing. That time, whatever you define, it's 12 a.m. on the day you were born or the actual time. What time zone does that apply to? The time zone where you were born or the time zone where the senior is living now? Because they might be different. And what about those born on February 29? You see how something simple became extremely complicated. And it will make a difference if you're getting discounted movie tickets. Because if you define that it's the over 65 or senior citizen is based on the time of the day that the person was born, let's just say 9:30 a.m. And if I want to buy my ticket at 8:30 a.m., I am not entitled to it because I'm not senior yet. See how complicated we can go on and on and on. And why is that so complicated? You see, we're trying to understand all are equal before the law, but we need to define that better. The parameters that we used in this example, and we use in most of what we do in a society, in a country, in a city, in a group, most of these parameters are present in a physical life. Here are the thoughts. In that group of seniors, some might be nurses, some others might be teachers, some others might be lawyers. And you can say, oh, but nurses don't have any preference over lawyers. No, because the law is the same for all. So that parameter, that studies, academic studies, they do not apply here because it's based on age and age only. Some in the group might be retired, some other might be still active, but it won't matter for that group. Not to get the discounted movie ticket in our example. Some might be men, some might be women. It doesn't apply. We're only looking into age, and it has to be clearly and well defined. So the rule applies correctly to everyone. Now, the law of God is above all physical and material things. The law of God is above all of that. It only sees one thing, the spirits. Spirits. Nothing else. Doesn't matter if they're incarnate, discarnate, where they were born, where they are going to be born next life. Just doesn't matter. The law looks into one thing, spirits, and they are all equal. You see, the law of God comes from the highest layer of justice and knowledge. Meaning, and that's where everything changes, meaning it bears omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience. And our laws don't bear any of that. So for different criteria, you have different outcomes. Now, if the laws of the group, think of our example here, that group of seniors, if the laws of that group are imposed onto the members of the group to benefit just a few of them, then what you're doing is you're taking away the opportunity that each one deserves. The law written with that in mind flattens the group's conscience. What do I mean by flatten the conscience? Flattening means all members of the group would have to accept and behave the same way as dictated by the leaders. So you have people with moral levels here, 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 here. They're all senior, but they have different levels of morality and knowledge and intellect. What you do by what I mean by flattening is everybody becomes all the same. So those who have certain abilities are not going to be able to use their abilities. So this takes away the opportunities that each one has of using their abilities, their knowledge, their merits, and their free will. So it tends to take away the concept of individuality. And this is a head-to-head collision with the law of God. The understanding that of all equal, the words, the expression all equal, the understanding of that is tightly dependent on understanding of the law and its scope. In the Spiritist concept, the law is the law of God, whose scope is universal. And being universal, by the way, that law cannot allow for variations. It's one law for all, exactly the same way. No favoritisms, no, let's talk about this for you and for that, no. This means that this law, the law of God, cannot be written for people. Pay attention to this. The law of God cannot be written for people, us humans, because it would exclude discarnate spirits. So you wouldn't be universal. So the law of God is not written for us people as humans, because it would establish privileges, favoritism, discrimination against those who are discarnate. And this is why the law of God is above all others. It is the only universal law. By the way, there are other divine laws, such as the ones that control the material principle and so and so and so. It controls how atoms and electrons and quarks, all of that behaves. But I'm talking about laws for spirits here. All spirits are created equal and have the same destiny, which is perfection. And that is part of the law. All spirits, whether they are incarnate or discarnate, they all have the same opportunity. That's what Jesus tries to tell us with the parable of the talents. The parable of the talents shows how everyone handles the opportunity in a different way. The opportunities aren't the same. Everybody gets the same talent. But the outcome from the three men that received that is different, because they're different spirits. They do things in their own way. They have free will. So the parable of the talent shows exactly that. important. They were all given the same opportunity. But they were not required to behave the same way. So that group of those three men, it was not flattened. It was not flattened. They had their free will. They could act as they wished. So when we are part of groups and societies that are flattened, we cannot use our abilities to the best we can. We cannot use our free will. Each person will use his or her ability and knowledge differently than the others. That's what it should be. So the elements of a physical life, such as wealth, social position, nationality, religious preferences, religious affiliation, race, all of that, these elements of physical life, they do not define the spirit. They define the journey and the opportunities that we are given. But it's up to us to deal with that, to use that in our own favor. All laws are written with an intention. The divine law is universal and written with a clear intention, which is goodness and happiness of all spirits. Spirits, not human beings. Spirits. Goodness and happiness of all spirits. Are we all good and happy? No, but not because of the law. Not because of the law. Because of ourselves. When we go head to head against the law, we're going to have to offset the wrongdoings somewhere down the line. Now, every law brings embedded in its concept action and reaction. For example, if you don't follow the law, you will face consequences. That's how our laws here, our human laws are. So in human law, these consequences are outsourced to those who organize the law of the group, the society, the city. That law establishes punishments or consequences when there's a violation of that law. Now that means, and this is where the thing becomes very complicated. If I'm going to establish punishments and consequences for the violations of the law, I need to be able to foresee every possible violation to establish the consequences. That translates into having a law with infinite number of articles. Because there are too many visible possibilities. And those are only possibilities that we can see as humans. So we could say that the divine law has only one article, just one, which is what happens when the law is violated. That one article says, if you violate the divine law, the consequence is, the only consequence is, you're going to be given another opportunity to get it right next time. With no restrictions. So the divine law is a single article law. We could say that. The more articles we have in a law, the more control is being thrown towards the members of the group. And that opens the doors for mistakes and injustice and on, favoritism and on and on. The law of God is based on education, never punishment. The law of God is equal at the origin and destiny. Never changes. Our laws change with time because society grows, society evolves. So the laws have to be adjusted with time based on even location. The laws for one country is not the same for the other, for one city is not the same for the other. So the human law is never the same. And the law of God is equal at origin and destiny. The law of God is based on responsibility. It includes accountability. So divine law includes not only justice, but also mercy. Because it allows the only consequence of violating the law is the opportunity to do it again. So let's say we have our group and we are going to have a new member into our group. And for that new member, it could be one member or several people. So new people are joining the group. And we say, well, before these new people join the group, we have to make some adjustments to our rules for whatever reason. Then we make the adjustments to the laws of the group, to the rules, and some people join the group. And that's all fine in principle. Now, what kind of law would you, and myself included, you is a way of speaking, what kind of law would you, if you had full power, what kind of law, meaning violations and consequences, would you write for Jesus? So Jesus is a member, and now you're going to have to write the law. What kind of law would you write? You see how interesting it is? Answer, there's no need for a law. No need. Apostle Paul says something very interesting. The law is not written for the just. And why we don't need, and we cannot even do it, write a law for Jesus joining our group? Because the law is not written for the just, and Jesus is the just. Jesus never measured anyone by worldly standards. He welcomed the rich, the poor, the ignorant, the knowledgeable person, the healthy, the sick, the saints, the sinners, all of them. He saw beyond the appearances. He saw beyond the physical life. He was looking at spirits, not people. He recognized in each person an immortal spirit, capable of transformation, because we are all. So the stories that we are told in the Gospels, the woman caught in adultery, Zacchaeus, the tax collector, the Samaritan woman, and all those stories, Jesus demonstrated that the divine justice is always accompanied by compassion. Always. He teaches us not merely to obey the law, but to fulfill the law through love. So being equal before God, right, or being equal before the law of God, does not mean having identical experiences. It means having equal value, equal dignity, equal opportunity for spiritual progress, equal responsibility for the choices we make. God does not compare us to another. God's law is absolute, it's not relative. Oh, this guy did it this way, so obviously that guy, does that way. And by the same token, the third person, it's one law, one article. Nothing else is needed. The law of God invites us, each one of us, to be better. Every person we meet, we have relations with, is an immortal spirit, deserving the same things that I deserve. Things like respect, love, compassion. We deserve all of them. Every person we meet will be Jesus-like one day. So will we. All are equal before the law. Applies to the life of the spirit, not physical life. Any attempt to apply this statement to a physical life will flatten the society, the group, the country, the humanity. It is not a statement for elements in a physical life. It is a statement for the life of the spirit. Thank you very much for being with us once again. And like I always say, Spiritism, a closer look, right here on Kardec Radio. We'll be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Be well.